Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on the locations that you have joined. Let me go ahead and share my desktop. And yep, I think we're good to go. Yep, so welcome to my channel, guys, Dave's software tutorial. So, yes, in my previous video, we talked about some basic implementation of BDD, all the fundamentals of BDD that we have talked about. And in this particular video, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about some complex scenarios. We'll talk about some more concepts by which we can make BDD much more helpful, much more productive for our organization, for our project. Okay, so let's begin. So just to go ahead and do a bit of recap. Okay, so what is my feature? What are the keywords that I'll use in BDD? And these are called my Gherkin parser or my Gherkin language. I'll use feature. So what is my feature? Feature is a high level description, guys. Cool. What is scenario? Scenario is my in detail overview, or I would mention like this. In details overview would be, or high level overview would be my feature, and scenario would be my description. That makes sense. Cool. In details description, one liner, specifically one liner. Just try to achieve this in one liner. Okay, what is given? Given is my precondition, guys. Cool. What is when? When is my actions or navigations? What is my then? Then is my outcome or my expected results. Cool. What is and? Combining actions or navigations. This is how it looks like. Cool, makes sense? Yep. So these are the words that we have used, and these are known as Gherkin language. Okay. And these are the keywords that we generally use. Okay. Feature, scenario, given, when, then, and. We use but as well. I don't use but. Yep. Used for negative scenarios. Cool. Fine. So what we're going to learn today is how to go ahead, because yesterday what we learned is, in my previous video we have learned it for a single use case. Okay, so this particular single use case would be for single user only. This is for a single user. See, now what happens if I go ahead and suppose this is my UI. So if I go ahead and I want to verify this particular UI validation on Facebook, and this is for 5 users. So I'll have 5 different users. This is a very common scenario, guys. Based on the permutation and combination, we have to do the testing using multiple scenarios, right? The developer will go ahead and do the unit testing for multiple combinations, multiple combination of values. We call it as a test data. How to go ahead and achieve that? So there is a concept of parametrization. What is that particular concept? We call it as parametrization. I'll write it over here. What is that concept? We call it as parametrization. What is parametrization? Parametrization is passing multiple values for single test case. Cool? Or test scenario. Cool? Or for use case. So here what I'm doing is I'm using behavior. Cool? What is my behavior? My behavior is the functionality of this particular use case. So what I'm doing, parameterizing what? I'm passing multiple values for single test cases. How do I achieve that? The way to achieve that is by using data table. This is the data table, guys. See this particular examples. So beneath examples, I have user, I have uh, three separate users, see, and this is known as my data table, guys. This thing is known as data table. So this is the concept of parameterization. How do I parameterize? See, I have feature. What is feature? High level overview of my particular use case, of the behavior that I'm testing. User login validation, scenario outline. So previously we have used scenario. See, in all these things we have used scenario. See, scenarios. Here also I have scenarios. What is the basic difference? If I use scenario outline and put a colon, I have to use examples. This is the basic difference. So scenario outline is used for parameterization. Why I'm parameterizing? To achieve multiple combination of test data in a single flow. That is what parameterization is all about. I'm using multiple test data. Here I'm using 3 users for this particular flow. Cool. Given the user is on the landing page of the application, when user enters valid username and password, so I'm parameterizing username and password. See, username and password, and user clicks on the login button. See, this particular user will click on the login button and system displays homepage of the application. So how to achieve parameterization? Give this less than sign, and under, like within this less than, you have to write the keyword that you want to parameterize. Here I want to parameterize user. Reason being, I want to enter different user for different values. And what are those another values? Like what are those other values? Those other values would be username, because this would be unique. This is how I go ahead and test username, password, user. So how do I parameterize? This is how I parameterize. And what are these things? These things are known as headers, guys. These are known as header, and these are known as my values. This is how I go ahead and do. Fine. So I have introduced another word called data table, and the concept is known as parameterization. So what I am achieving by using this particular data table, I'm achieving parameterization. Fine. So what I've done is, this is a realistic example. Facebook UI. We are all familiar with this Facebook UI login page. And what are the things that I have to fill here? What are, like, how many fields? First name, last name, mobile number, email, password, birthday, gender, and finally I have to click on this button. The name of this button is sign up button. How do I parameterize it for multiple users, guys? I'll go ahead. I'll look at here. See, scenario outline, verification of Facebook account creation for a new user. Given user is on the landing page of Facebook. See, precondition. I'll write it as first name. Cool. The same flow I've written, but I've parameterized all these values. So what are the values I parameterized? I parameterized this first name, last name, mobile, password. See, I parameterized everything. And this thing will come here. These things are known as header, guys. And what is this whole thing known as? This whole thing is known as data table, guys. Why data table? It's a concept of BDD. In BDD, we have a concept called data table, and we use it in terms of parameterization, to achieve parameterization. Now, the basic questions: why we want to achieve parameterization? Because we were doing simple things here. This is for single user. This flow is valid for single user, this particular user. Okay. Now, parameterization has 3 advantages, and I always recommend people to go ahead and do parameterization. Why parameterization? Reason being, see, we are not repeating any steps for separate users, because this particular step would remain constant. This thing would remain constant. We're not repeating anything. We're not adding any other steps. Fine. So this approach is known as multi-users approach or data-driven approach. The same thing that we follow in Selenium. We'll have a different Excel file or a JSON. Cool, guys. Fine. So this is how we go ahead and achieve. Yep. So what is the second point? The second point is, we are not hard coding any test data. See, I'm not hard coding any test data as of now. So previously, what I can do is I can go ahead and I can hard code all these things as well. Fine. And user enters username. So username I would mention as ABC123. See, so in many of the, like in many of the practices or many of my colleagues, they go ahead and write it like this. It's not a good practice. So what we did is we went ahead and we had a discussion, and after that we started following this thing. Cool. So see, what I'm doing is I'm hard coding all the values. This is not a good approach. If you want to hard code, you have to give all this colon. See, double quote. Within double quote, you have to mention the value. What is this? This is the value. But what is the disadvantage? This particular test case or this particular flow will be valid for this test data. So suppose if there is any other change and you want to use it for 10 users, you have to make 10 changes over here. 10 times you have to make that particular change. Or else what is another way? You have to copy and paste 10 times here. But it's a complete waste of time. How to achieve that? You have to achieve that in using parametrizing. So parametrization is the concept, guys. It's very easy. Just try to implement, try to think in this way that by this thing I can reduce time, I can reduce effort, and I can generate more values out of it. That's what our knowledge is all about. How to gain more out of it. Fine. How to gain more revenues, how to reduce time, correct, and how to reduce manual effort. I am always a fan of reducing manual effort. Cool. Yep. So given user is on the landing page, see guys, same flow. What I'm doing, I'm parameterizing. So this is my Facebook account creation thing, and see what is the third point. The third point is in future the UI tag name gets changed. We have to change the headers only. Headers represent my parameterized value. So suppose something gets changed over here. Okay, first name, last name, mobile, new password, anything gets changed over here. What do I have to change? I have to change only this parameterized value. See, suppose it gets changed as if name. See, I'm changing only if name, and here also I have to change the same if name. Cool, cool. I have to do the same thing if name. See, so this is how easy it is. This is how simple it is. Cool. And I always say people to follow camel case. Okay, camel case represents like this. You can use camel case. This is like camel case, or it can be like this also. Cool. Yep. So this is how easy it is, and this is why I have introduced this particular concept called parameterization. So till now, what we have talked about all these basic keywords like feature, scenario, given, and now we have talked about scenario outline as well. Cool. We have talked about scenario outline as well. Scenario outline talks about data tables. It talks about parameterization. Make sense? Parameterization. Now, another thing that I want to convey on this particular video is background keyword. So why background? There is another concept of cucumber, that is background keyword. So there is another keyword called background. This background keyword would club all the repeated steps under one roof. And what is that roof name? Background is the roof name, guys. So why background? So if I go ahead and see here, what I'm doing, I'm using given. Given as is my precondition, right? We have to write given at the beginning. But if you notice, see, I'm using the same thing again and again. Given user is on the landing page of the application. Given user is on the landing page. So for each and every scenario, I'm repeating this particular thing. Did you notice this? For each and every scenario, I'm repeating this. Given user is on the landing page again and again. So how to reduce this manual effort? As I've already mentioned, I'm a big fan of reducing manual effort. Cool. So you have to use background. See, given user is on the landing page and I didn't write here. So this is for a single feature file, we call it as. So how do I in realistic approach or in realistic scenario in your project or in your organization, you'll have one feature file, and under that particular or in that particular feature file, you'll have many scenarios, many scenario outline. So suppose you will have end-to-end scenarios, and it goes like this. You'll have 10 functional flows or 10 flows that you have to go ahead and club in one E2E functionalities. E2E represents end-to-end functionalities. Cool. So in that particular functionalities, background is very much helpful, this keyword, so that you don't have to repeat any number of steps. It can be more than one step as well. In given, it can be more than one step as well. Here I can write when as well, no issues. Cool. So all the repeated steps, you can mention it here in background. That's the more advantage of background. Cool. Make sense? Now, how do I go ahead and enable this thing here? Now, just for the newcomers, I would request you to go ahead and watch my previous video. In that video, I have mentioned how to install or how to extract, not install, how to extract this particular tool called Visual Studio Code and how to enable this particular extension called Cucumber Gherkin Full Support. You have to enable this particular extension, guys. It's a free cost, like it's an open source tool, and BDD is open source. It's all available, and we can go ahead and we can build it in Eclipse as well. Cool. So in Eclipse, how do I go ahead and do that? So just to give you an overview, how to go ahead and do that. So this particular file is known as my feature file. How do I understand that this is a feature file? See, dot feature. Cool. Dot feature. See, data table dot feature, Facebook account creation dot feature, background BDD dot feature. Everything I have in feature. So how to go ahead and how it helps in project? If you tell me that, okay, Dev, what is the implementation of BDD? Like based on your two videos, we have got some idea how to write the Gherkin feature file using all those Gherkin keywords, how to parameterize, how when to use background. We know all those concepts. Now, what is the usage of this thing? So the usage of this thing is, suppose I have three box, okay. Here is my feature file, guys. This is my dot feature. Okay. Here I'll have my step definition. Okay. I'll have my step definition. And step definition can be in anything. So I use Java. It can be in Ruby as well. Okay. So I generally use Java. So that's why I follow Java. Okay. The step definitions. And this would be a direct mapping, like feature to step definition. For each and every feature, like for each and every steps, we call these things as steps. This is one step, this is one step, this is one step. So from 17 to 23, these are all my steps. 25 also. So 24 we can ignore. Okay. 25 we can ignore because this is for inline parameters. I'll make you understand what inline parameters is all about. Okay. So at least we can ignore for 2 to 3 minutes. Fine. So all these are my steps. How to go ahead and achieve this thing? I'll open my app. This is Tidy Gherkin. So in my previous video also I have shown you how to go ahead and enable Tidy Gherkin. It's a Chrome plugin, guys. Just go ahead and type here in Google Tidy Gherkin. Just go here and see Chrome plugin. It's a Chrome plugin, guys. See Tidy Gherkin Chrome. Just enable it. Simple. Now I open Tidy Gherkin here. This is my Tidy Gherkin. And how do I go ahead and create those step definitions? Suppose if I copy paste, suppose this is the one that I copy pasted. Okay. So as I mentioned, these are my step definitions: when, and, user. For all these keywords, I'll have different step definitions. Fine. So here, enter your Gherkin here. See, I have all my step definitions. How to go ahead and identify? Click on Java steps, guys. See, these are my step definitions and these are my regular expressions. Okay, I'll have the regular expressions other way because these are my only things. Like these are the format. You have to use this double quote and you have to use this dollar. These are cucumber format. Regular expression, we'll talk about regular expressions later on, because when I automate using Eclipse, then I'll talk about regular expression. There are two types of regular expression that we can use for first name, last name, the thing that we can parameterize. So regular expression is used for parameterization. How Cucumber would understand that, okay, you have parameterized this particular value, username you parameterized, password you parameterized. So for parameterization, we use regular expression. We'll talk more about regular expression in my upcoming videos, definitely. But this video's objective is to make you understand what is background, what is data table, and another concept I'll discuss, that is inline parameters. Fine. So this is how you enable tidy Gherkin, and these are all my step definitions. This is my step definition, guys. So for this step, what I'll do is, this is a Java method, we call it as. So for each and everything, see, they have created a separate method. See, and the name of this method is your this thing. Cool. Make sense? Now, We have introduced data table here, and this is the concept of data table. So what is the concept of data table? The concept of data table, the objective of data table is parameterizing, guys. Why parameterization? Because we want different users for this particular flow. We want separate users. Cool. So how do I go ahead and do that? I'll open Facebook. The UI opens. Okay. So what is the objective? The objective is, let it open. I have to test this particular UI or this particular validation, login validation for multiple users, maybe more than 10 users. How do I achieve that? I have to achieve that using parameterizing. Cool. This is the parameterizing. See, user, first name, last name, email. I have parameterized everything. Cool. This is how we have to go ahead and think in BDD. And these are known as my headers. See, line number 34. We'll focus on line number 34. And this talks about the headers. This is how it identifies. And these are all my values. See, and I'm passing it as a parameters. Sign up, female, birthday, password, email, last name. All these values, guys. First name, last name. I'll parameterize. Suppose I have to enter two more. Two more users I have to enter. Fine. I'll enter at is user 5. Okay. A, B, C, D, F. I'll enter here. Okay. Just for alignment, I'll do this thing. See? See? So this thing I'll do. I'll write 1. So I have a separate thing for that one as well. Cool, makes sense. This is how I can go ahead and achieve. See, just for alignment purpose I'm doing this. Fine. Password can be anything. Password can be Q as well here. Cool. And this can be 27 as well. Cool. I can copy paste this thing as well, and I can write it as female as here. Sign up. Button also I parameterized. Reason being, if the name of this sign up button goes like here, I have login. Suppose the UI changes. There is a product owner, and he has conveyed his interest that, okay, based on my business requirement, my requirement is to go ahead and change this sign up to login. Then what you have to do is you have to change this button here, only the name. You don't have to touch this navigation at all. So the main advantage is I'm not hard coding anything. This is the main advantage, guys, in BDD and in parameterization. In parameterization, I don't have to touch my main functional flow. What I'll do, I'll pass everything in dataset. I'll pass everything in data tables. Okay, this particular data table would go ahead and help me to pass all my values. How I'm passing? I'm passing this by headers. See, username, password, last name, email. So these 3 points would be very essential. We are not repeating any steps for separate users. Multiple users approach, and this is what data driven is all about. We are not hard coding any test data. See, in this particular flow, I am not hard coded anything. Cool. And in future, UI tag name gets changed. Suppose this thing, sign up button, this name gets changed to login. Then what do I have to do? I don't have to touch anything here. What I'll do? I'll click login. Done. Simple. I'll copy paste the same thing here. See, I'll copy paste the same thing here and done. My test case is good to go. So low maintenance cost. Cool. Low maintenance cost. It's very low maintenance cost. Cool. Makes sense. So these are the three advantages of parameterization. Now there is another concept. I hope you have understood the concept of data table, parameterization, background. So what is background? Again, I repeat, what is background? What I'm doing, see, I'll repeat or I'll read it out. Background in Cucumber is used to define a step or a series of steps that are common. Okay. It allows you to add some context to the scenarios or a feature when it is defined. And the last point is very important. It runs before each and every scenario where for a feature in which it is defined. See, background given user is on the landing page of Facebook, because here, see, I am doing the same thing again and again for a scenario. So for a huge feature file, you don't have to copy and paste everywhere. You don't have to write the similar thing again and again. Reason being, I am a big fan of automating things. I'm a big fan of reducing manual effort. You shouldn't do manual tasks again and again. You should reduce that effort and make it useful, give some value add to your project so that it can save the number of clicks. Cool, makes sense. Now see, background, given user is on the landing page of Facebook, and see I have not used given here anymore. It saves time, it saves effort as well. See, when user enters first name, last name, my step says begun from when. I repeat, my steps has begun from when. See, user enters last name, email address, everything. Cool. This is the utilization of background. Again, it's a keyword, guys. It's a Gherkin keyword. Cool. So how many keywords did we learn? Let's make a point of it. How many keywords did we learn? Here we learn we learned about scenario outline. Okay, cool. These are the scenarios that we have learned. Okay, these are the keywords. I'm sorry. Okay, we have learned about background as well. Cool, makes sense. So these are the things that we have learned. We have learned about feature, scenario, given, when, then, and. But I don't use generally. For negative scenarios it is used, but I don't use but. Okay, and scenario outline, background. Okay, so these are the things that you can go ahead and implement, start implementing. We can have another videos using but as well, using all the negative scenarios, because negative scenarios will try to achieve like this. Negative scenario will try to achieve like this, will display the message like this. So here also I am not using but. Cool. How to achieve negative scenario? I'll repeat. See, system displayed invalid username and password when invalid password or username is entered. This is a negative scenario because this is displaying an error message. This is that error message. Cool. So always think that you should use everything in a simple English language. Then only it becomes much more productive when you start using simple English language. Now, only one thing is remaining in this particular video, that is inline parameters. What is inline parameters, guys? Inline parameters is something which you can write it in the steps. Okay, you have a concept called, so I'll write it like this, inline parameters, guys. We call it as inline parameters. What is inline parameters? Used to pass values to the previous step. Okay, how do I go ahead and do that? Suppose I have to enter password, then password you have to enter like 123. This is how you do that. Open a pipe. Okay, suppose email, enter. Okay, so these are all my steps when user enters. Suppose you want to enter first name as inline, press enter. Open pipe, shift pipe. Okay, first name, what is your first name? Raghav. Raghav is my first name. Close pipe, it's done. This is called inline parameters, guys. This particular thing is known as inline parameters. Did you notice the time, the moment I entered this thing, it all became blue? Cool. It's a color significant of cucumber of this particular extension. This thing is known as inline parameters. What I'm using, like why I'm using inline parameter, to pass this particular value, first name. First name value is Raghav. Okay. Now, I'm not a big fan of inline parameters. Why? Reason being, it has to be hard coded, not recommended. I'll mention like this, not recommended. Why? We have to hard code. And please don't use inline parameters. It's like good to know information. Fine. Like you can mention that, okay, fine, in Dev's video, we got to know what is inline parameters, but we don't use it generally. On a regular basis, we don't use it. Cool. That's how it is. Okay, so it's good to know information that what is inline parameters. Yes, it is to pass values to my previous step. This is my previous step. And which values I'm passing? The value I'm passing is Raghav, the value of my first name. But it's not recommended. See, helps to define values for steps, used for single flow, single user, single test case. You can use it for this test case only. And the major disadvantage is it's hard coded, guys. That is the main thing. So I would recommend not to use inline parameters. It's good to know information. Okay. But in specific scenarios, you can use inline parameters. Like there is a very small scenario, you can use inline parameters. You don't have to parameterize. Then you can use inline parameters. But yes, I'm a big fan of reducing manual effort. So that's why I don't recommend people to use inline. I always recommend people to use parameterization. This is what I recommend, guys. This is what you should do. You should use background. Okay, you should use feature should be at the top. Okay, high level overview followed by background followed by your scenario. This should be the pattern, guys. Okay, remember, this should be the pattern. Feature, then background, then scenario. If you want to use scenario outline, then come here, come down. See, scenario outline, then starts your navigation, start your steps. Okay, given when, then starts from here. So given you have already used in background, so starts from when, and is your uh, combination of navigations and your actions. See, and then is your Facebook account is created. Cool, makes sense. And the examples, what is examples is your data table, the values that you're passing. Cool. So I hope this particular video has helped you to understand what is inline parameters, what is data table, what is parameterization, because the main focus of this particular video was to make you guys understand what is parameterization and why we parameterize and how to parameterize in Visual Studio Code, this particular ID using Gherkin and in BDD. That's what important is. That's the takeaway of this particular video. What is inline parameters? What is data table, how to use data table, how to parameterize. So I would request you to go ahead, practice something, and you have to like the moment you go ahead and practice this thing. So parameterization starts with all the keywords. And how do I go ahead and do that? Greater than, less than. Suppose I want to parameterize first name, so I'll write first name, see, greater than, less than. I'm parameterized, and I have to use the similar thing in example in my data table, and these are known as headers. That's how I relate, that's how I link. And under that, I'll use pipe for different users. Don't write user one over here, please guys, don't write like this. Reason being, then you're repeating the values, it'll throw an error. Okay, because user one, same thing. Okay, you have tried user two. And another thing before ending up this particular video, how many test cases, how to count test cases in Gherkin? This is a pretty interesting question. How do I count test cases in BDD Gherkin? How do I count test cases? How many test cases? So here it's pretty easy. I have one test case. So here you can write as 1. Here you can write as 2. So before each and every scenario you can write. But what about this? What about this? So here you have how many test cases? You have 4 test cases. How to identify? You have 4 flows. See, the number of data tables you mention. See, user 2, user 3, user 4, user 5. See, so this particular test set or this particular data set will be applicable for this flow. Again, this particular data set will be applicable for this particular flow. So how many flow do I have? I have 4 flows. Correct? Makes sense? So this is how I count data set in terms of this is how I count test cases in BDD. Cool? Makes sense? Fine. So thank you all for sharing your valuable time. I hope this particular video helps you to understand BDD, and I hope you implement this particular knowledge in your project. Thank you guys.